Welcome to the holiday podcast from Tweaktown. It is currently Thanksgiving or about ending Thanksgiving in the United States right now, and I'm in Australia where it is now Friday and it's beautiful and sunny outside. We thought we'll bring you a slimmed down podcast that you can come and check out. We're going to cover just games in this podcast because there's been a fair bit of traction in the gaming market lately. We've got the launches of the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4 in multiple territories around the world, and a few of the big titles. We've got Charles here that's going to be talking to me about the games. We're going to start off with Star Citizen. If you haven't heard about Star Citizen, like I've said, like we always say in most of our posts, you should really check it out if you're a PC gaming fan or even just a tech fan. It's from the mind of Chris Roberts, who was the person behind Wing Commander in the 90s. If you don't remember Wing Commander, you're probably maybe a little bit too young, or just maybe skipped the game when it came out, but it was one of the biggest games at the time. It really pushed hardware at the time. Not just in video cards, but sound cards. Back then, Creative made a lot of money selling all 64s and stuff like that. Do you remember that, Charles? Did you ever buy an all 64 or like any of the old Sound Blaster cards, the PCR cards, or even ISA cards?
Oh yeah, I did, and I actually remember the old Wing Commander games. I never played them much. They were a little dated by the time I got into PCs.
Did you play Freelancer at all?
No, actually, I didn't play Freelancer. I had some friends that were really big into it.
Okay, that was a really good LAN game. I played that so much when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Me and my cousin and my brother and a bunch of friends like Freelancer. Wing Commander I didn't get too big into, mainly because I was pretty young, like 12, 13 I think when it came out.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the money. Like back then, sound cards, especially here in Australia, were like $500 each for a sound card.
Wow.
It was a bit crazy. But no, it was a big game. Freelancer especially was really cool. That was.
I had some friends that did LAN parties every weekend, and they would play Freelancer and Star Citizen and a couple other games.
So with Star Citizen, if you haven't already had a look at any of the news or heard about it, Cloud Imperium Games went onto Kickstarter and launched a funding campaign for it. They initially had a funding goal of about $500,000, and they got that pretty quickly and started busting into the millions by the end of the 30 days. And this was about 6 to 8 months ago now, probably about the middle of the year. And they are now sitting at $33 million as of a couple of days ago. At the beginning of the week, about the 22nd, 23rd of November, they were sitting at about $29-30 million, and they've pretty much been doing about $1 million or $800,000 US a day in crowdfunding through their website. They've got some crazy amounts of funding goals that they've been adding on. They're continuously adding stuff onto it. They've unlocked the Hangar module that you can still pledge even today. I pledged and I've got access to the Hangar module. And there was a dogfighting module that was supposed to be coming out next month, but from what I've read, it's actually not coming out next month now. It's been delayed, and there's no date on it, which is disappointing. Just before this podcast goes live, I have an article just checking out Star Citizen, and I've got a video and a bunch of pictures reviewing it on the setup that you can see behind me on triple 1440p panels, so 7860 by 1440 on Crossfire 7970s. So that should be going up pretty soon. Are you going to back it, Charles? Do you think you're going to back it? You're going to come play out with me early 2015?
Yeah, I think I will. It's not that expensive.
I think it's only about $45. It's not too bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. And when you consider in the last month I've spent over $800 on Kickstarter, $45 isn't bad.
Well, it's 5% of that, so it's nothing. That's good. It does sound pretty good. Like a lot of the stuff we haven't really captured on Tweaktown because it's hard to read. You really need to see it, I think, to really to understand it. And I think it's going to be one of those games that it's going to sell very well in the underground kind of like / PC market. It's not going to consoles. Chris Roberts has confirmed it will not go to consoles. I think that might change now based on how much money it's pulling in, and I think I've read somewhere that that Roberts said that he would consider if Sony were to put enough money in. So if Sony were to say, like Sony and Microsoft would have to be looking at it right now. They'd have to. They'd be stupid to not be thinking we want to be in on this. But they know the technological restrictions that Chris Roberts is going to put on it. Like consoles simply aren't going to be fast enough to run this thing at 1080p. Even on PC, he said Chris Roberts has said he wants to push PCs from whatever they are now, like a big step forward. Just in terms of graphics, just because of how big this game is. You can be whatever you want in the game. You can be a pirate. You can be a courier. You can be you could fly ships all day, or you could be like in dogfighting all day. I think I'm going to be a pirate. I've talked to my friends and my brother and my cousin about this, who are all going to play the game. And you can actually go to a planet, and there'll be like a mineral there called X mineral, and that mineral will have a price on the stock market. So you can actually control that by pirating the materials. So you might see another player in the universe taking the material off the planet and flying off with it. So you can, a couple of hours before that, short that material on the stock market, and you can say that I think the price is going to go up or going to go down based on a terrorist attack or whatever. And then you can actually go and attack that ship and drive the price up by yourself. So that's the kind of that's different to all the other games. You can't be conniving like that, if you know what I mean. Like I think EVE Online you can. But that's about the closest thing. There's nothing mainstream that you can really do that with. That's what Star Citizen has me excited. Just that little thing that you can do, that kind of gameplay is exciting. It's new, it's fresh.
I didn't even know that aspect of the game, and I think I'm gonna buy it just based so I can be a pirate.
Yeah, I think it sounds fun because it's different. Like that's a part of the game that's different to everything else. Like everything else, you just run, shoot, fly, shoot. That's it. Where this is a persistent world that's always living and thriving. So you can pretty much do whatever you want, which is exciting. We'll move on to Steam. Have just launched some autumn sales. There was a crazy sale yesterday that when it started on November 27. Today isn't too bad. Yesterday, or the first day, depending on when you watch this, they had Skyrim. But I think it was 75% off, which is a huge saving. Today they've got Dead Island with 75% off, down from $19.99 to $4.99. Not too bad. System Shock 2, if you've never played it, one of the best games from the 90s. The spiritual successor that came out a couple of years ago was Bioshock. And then Bioshock, obviously, 2 and Bioshock Infinite. Those games kind of were like born from not Star Citizen, from System Shock. That's down to just $2.49. If you do get that, I would personally recommend getting the high-resolution texture packs that are available for that. It makes the game go from looking very outdated to at least half modern. Did you buy anything, Charles? Did you load up your credit card and spend crazy on the Steam store like everyone does at this time of the year?
Well, here's where I have to confess. I own every game that's been on sale. I have
Really?
I have almost 200 games on my Steam account. So when they have sales now, I probably have every game they put on sale.
Yeah, but I think it's that's the one good thing I think that Valve does well, is that they cater to that. So they know people are sitting at home. They've maybe received some money for Thanksgiving from a family member or something, or they know that this the Black Friday sales are coming, and they just go crazy. They think, well, we make money, and not only that and I don't even think it's about making money, because they're dropping games by like 75%. It's about keeping your customers happy. Valve seem to always want to do that. It's like they do these big sales. You never really see those big sales on Xbox and PlayStation.
I guess my big part of it is that I'm addicted to Humble Bundle. I buy every Humble Bundle that comes out, every single one, regardless whether I like the game or not. Because there's always at least one game I'll probably play. And so I have well over 200 games. I have so many games that I may never play. I think I only have 15 of them installed total.
Wow. I think that's the problem these days. You probably have so much that even if you were to sit down and play them back to back, you probably wouldn't even have enough time. You would have to quit Tweaktown, dump your girlfriend, tell your family that you're going to go missing for a couple of years, and even then I don't think you'd finish half those games in time.
Somebody, I don't know who it was, I remember reading a couple months ago that the age of just gaming is almost not really over, but it's spawned into game collecting as well.
Yeah.
It was pretty much around the time Steam launched their trading cards for their game trading cards. And it was kind of the same time that Humble Bundle was getting big, and people were outraged that people were paying $6 for 8 games that maybe they might never play 5 of them.
But I'm the same.
Well, I mean, it's also with all the social gaming we do. I mean, if I jump on Steam and I see you playing, whatever game you're playing, I may have it too. I'm like, oh, cool, I'm going to jump in and play with Anthony.
Yep.
I might not play that game normally, but if I see one of my friends playing it and I'm bored, I would rather jump in and play a game with a friend than just jump in a game and not play with anyone that I know.
Yep. I think that's where I think I think we did it in another podcast, and I've written it in a few editorials. I think that's where the Steam Box and Steam Machine and Steam OS are going to take off, is that social aspect of gaming. Like Xbox has that, PlayStation has that, but they don't do the digital side of gaming too well, where Valve do it really well.
That's why I like Battlefield so much. I have a core group of friends that every one of us play Battlefield. Now, a couple of us, we all have our own favorite game types on Battlefield. Like one of my friends, he loves playing hardcore servers only, but we'll all get together in a squad, and we're all really good. So we'll jump in a game as a squad and just dominate the whole map for the entire game. All 4 of us, all 5 of us will be the top 5 people in the map, and I really like that because we're on voice communication with each other. So we'll run from point to point, or we'll have somebody set up sniper at the top of a mountain or the top of a building and cover us while we go take all these flags. And it just makes the aspect of gaming much more fun for me, because I can not only involve myself, but I can involve my friends, and it gives us something to talk about later, where it used to be we talk, oh, do you remember this part on this level that we played? But now we're like, hey man, do you remember what happened last night? That was so funny.
Well, you're talking about an actual, a group experience. It's like going and playing paintball or laser skirmish or something. Like, you can all remember those things. And Battlefield 4, especially like Levolution and the destructible environments, and even just the graphics. Like, the graphics aren't a huge leap over Battlefield 3, but it's still a jump. It still looks better than Battlefield 3, which is what you want. Where Call of Duty, doesn't look that great at all. Moving on for that, we have the next-gen consoles. In the last week to 2 weeks, Microsoft has launched the Xbox One, and a week before that, Sony launched the PlayStation 4. Both consoles have sold over 1 million units in the US, and Microsoft has called the Xbox One launch the biggest launch in Xbox history. It launched in 13 countries versus the PlayStation 4, which was only launching in a couple of countries. But the first 24 hours saw 1 million Xboxes sold. They've been quite popular on eBay as well. We won't really go into that much, but they were selling on eBay very quickly, which was an interesting thing to see. Because normally you don't see games sold, and game consoles sold on eBay, but not new. And I think mainly I probably feel like that because the last time that happened was a PlayStation 3, when people bought the PlayStation 3 because it launched in Japan first, and people were selling them for like $2,000 at the time. But that feels like so long ago now, because normally with PCs a graphics card comes out every year, where consoles it's every 6 or 7 or even 8 years now. And then within the same Xbox One talk, some of the Xbox One units are having issues with the Blu-ray drives. Until this day, there are no solutions that have been said from Microsoft, but some of the drives are actually having a whirring problem. We've got a news post up for that with the video, and you can actually hear that it's like a grinding sound coming from the internal Blu-ray drive.
There actually is not an official fix, but some users have reported you can hit them really hard with your hand, just like slam it really hard, and it fixes the grinding issue. But at the same time, you risk damaging your hard drive and misaligning your laser in there by doing that.
And even if that worked, I don't think I'd want to do that.
No, I wouldn't. I can't recommend you do that. Tweaktown doesn't recommend you do that. Because
not at all. If you were raging at it, maybe, but that's not our. We have a disclaimer, so that's a big star for us. We do not recommend doing that to your console.
No, but the easiest thing to do is report it to Microsoft and wait for them to give you a replacement.
And we've actually got a story up that you are receiving a free game if you do that as well. If you actually do have a faulty Blu-ray drive, you're actually getting a free game from Microsoft for your troubles, which isn't too bad. It's good damage control and very early.
Real quick before we move on, one thing to note about the Xbox sales on eBay: check the auction really closely. Because some of the auctions that are going on are people selling the empty box. So in the description it says box only. So you're going to pay $500 for an empty box, and because it's in the description, there's nothing illegal about the sale.
And this is the same thing. I remember this happening with the PlayStation 3, that people would say PlayStation 3 console, and then you read in the description box, and people would, they'd show a picture of the box, they don't need to show a picture of the console, and people were actually buying a boxes, and that's what's happening. But yeah, Charles was right. If you're buying an Xbox, just don't be. No, I don't want to say that word. Just think before you do it. Like $400 or $500 on a console for you to get a read. Exactly.
Read
double
the
check. Let's see. And at the end of the day, unless it's cheaper on eBay, I'm not trying to take business away from eBay. Go to Amazon, Best Buy, go anywhere else and buy it from a retail store or a big retailer.
And remember, use PayPal. And if you're questionable about it, send the seller a message. That way, you have documentation where they said this was an actual item, and that way, if it shows up as just a box or a box with a brick in it, you can contact PayPal and say, hey, they sold me a box with a brick, but here's where they say it was an actual console, and PayPal will give you your money back. I mean, just be smart about it. Don't jump into it because you're trying to rush for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Like eBay is what's the word? Convenient. That's the word I was looking for. Convenient. But that you can buy from Amazon. They'll ship it to you. You can buy it from plenty of other, from e-tails, or walk down to, or drive down, or catch the bus down to your local retailer.
Now, if you do get scammed, send me a message, send me an email, and I'll make sure to write a nice post about it on our website.
Yeah, that would actually be exactly. I think you'll get some traction. So if you do buy a box and you're not getting anywhere, let us know. We will try and do something for you. And keeping with the Xbox again, the Xbox One, there was a post on Anantech, or Anantech, however you want to pronounce his name, and he noticed that there were 14 compute units on the APU inside of the Xbox One, and that 12 of them are enabled. So the Xbox One has graphics core next compute units, which is the latest Radeon cards, but 2 of them are disabled. So they're downclocked by about 50 to 80 megahertz, from 900 megahertz to about 800 megahertz. But there's 2 of them disabled. So Microsoft are most likely doing this for UART issues. So they're not able to put all 14 of the cores on and receive 100 or 90% of them working. There might be only 60 or 70%. So disabling 2 of those compute units will then increase the yields to maybe 90, 95%, and Microsoft are then making more money because they're able to not have faulty chips all over the place, or overheating consoles or problematic consoles in 6 to 12 months, like the Red Rings of Death. Not that they're not having problems with the Blu-ray drives, but this is a different problem. But the one aspect that a lot of other sites didn't cover that we did is that with these two locked away compute units, is that it actually has untapped potential. So maybe not tomorrow, maybe not 6 months from now, but maybe a year or 2 from now, we might see an Xbox One. I think that we'll see an Xbox One Mini, and that will be the Xbox that we have now, and they'll shrink it down, and then there'll be a new Xbox One that'll be faster, that can maybe do 4K. That's what I believe. That's what we'll see. Is I really think that we should have seen 4K on day one, but hey, if we can't have it now, we can at least have it in the future. 4K will have more market penetration and consumer penetration by then. More of the TVs will be 4K. The displays are already getting cheap. You can get a Seiki digital display for about $500 or $600 from Amazon. I've got one on the way, and it should be here next week, and we're going to have a ton of content on that. But I think that's what Microsoft will do with that, and I think it's good, but at the same time, Microsoft obviously is having an issue with that. They're already behind in terms of performance compared to the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 is actually a faster console. It's got much better internal bandwidth than the Xbox One, but this might at least help bridge that gap between the PS4 and the Xbox One.
I was actually discussing the two locked out cores with an engineering friend of mine, and he suspects it might actually be due to heating issues. That maybe that extra 800 megahertz pushes it over the top, and maybe that could cause a red ring of death situation.
Yep. But you would think with the console being so much bigger, like that console is absolutely huge compared to the PS4,
Well,
that
yeah.
it wouldn't have those overheating issues.
No, I agree. And if you look at the teardown that iFixit did, I wrote an article on it. The CPU cooler for it is just massive. It makes up like 65% of the box of the case. It's just a CPU cooler. I mean, it's huge. It looks like something you would stick on like a very hot i7. I mean, it's unbelievably huge. So there's a lot of heat coming from that little chip. But I don't know. I mean, what you said actually makes more sense, though. That maybe it's just right now it's unstable with those two cores.
Yeah. Well, because the way that makes sense is that the way that I think about it is that's what happens in the graphics card world, and this is what this is. You know, all of them are made as equals at the start, and then whatever. Let's like CPUs. If you don't already know, most of the CPUs are made with an Extreme Edition in mind. It can't handle the Extreme Edition with the unlocked cores. It goes down one to Core i7 4770K, for example. It goes down again, until you get to Core i3. So that's the way that I'm guessing that Microsoft do with the APUs, is that they've tried, couldn't get it to that in time to do mass production for the holiday season, which is just hitting. So they've cut it down. But I'm hoping that we don't just get shafted and they do enable those 2 extra compute units. And that we see that sooner rather than later. A lot of the reports are saying that it might be a couple of years. I'm really thinking that maybe they held back because they knew that the Steam box was coming, maybe, and that they knew that they needed an excuse, not an excuse, but a reason to amp up their console against competition. So that could be why. But I think mainly probably yield issues, and just they just didn't want to put it out to the market like that, especially after all the problems they had with the Xbox Xbox 360 launch with all the double RODs. No one knows, I guess. Microsoft will never admit their problem. And finally, keeping with the console world, this is our last piece for today. We're trying to keep this one under 30 minutes, so we're about 23 and a bit now. We have the Steam Machine prototype that was unveiled a couple of days ago. We were pretty quick on the news. It is a machine from iBuyPower. It's just a prototype right now, so this isn't a final design. It's not a final anything. It's just, this is what we could probably do for this amount of money. So iBuyPower looking at a $499 price point, and for that $499 you actually get a pretty good system. You're actually getting an AMD CPU. With the CPUs it doesn't matter. The consoles have an AMD APU, which is just an AMD CPU with a GPU on it. But the difference here is that for $499, which is the same price as the Xbox One, $100 more than the PlayStation 4, you're actually receiving an AMD R9 270 GPU, which is $180 by itself. So the GPU that's actually inside of the this is just one of the prototypes of the Steam Machine, is actually going to be multitudes faster than the Xbox One and PS4s. That's going to be a big talking point going into next year. I think that we're probably going to see something at CES. Charles is going to be at CES, so he will be all over the Steam Machines, probably trying to put one in his top and running off with it. We'll try and do that. We'll try and get a Steam Machine.
Yeah, if I can get one back to the hotel room.
If you can get one, you need to get on the next plane to Australia. I don't care if you have to cover CS for the rest of the week. You come here and we're going to game on it. Well, that's what's going to happen.
Well, like I said, I'm not buying a next-gen console. I have no use for them. No. But I will buy a Steam Machine the day one becomes available, or I will build my own. Either one. Because I have a 200-plus Steam game library. I don't have to go buy any new games. I can just plug in my Steam box, hit the button, and I'm playing over 200 games instantly.
Yep. And that's what's exciting, is that that's where I don't understand the console market, is that, okay, you've just gotten an Xbox One 2 days ago, or you've gotten a PS4 a week ago. You then have to go buy a whole heap of new games. So that massive library that you might have for the Xbox One, Xbox 360 or PS3 is gone. It's completely just grab those games, maybe not throw them out, but in Microsoft's mind, that's what they're making you do. You're going out buying a new console, and that's it. It's really bad, because it goes to show that, it's think of it like this: if I go and buy an iPhone 5s and I've got an iPhone 4, and then I have to buy all my apps again, people wouldn't do that. It's as easy as that. Apple would die in a year. The Microsoft are able to do that because they have that power. They could build backwards compatibility in it. They could really do it. They could do it in the cloud, or they could They could do something. I don't know. Like, you know, with a Steam box, like you said, like you'll be able to turn your Steam box on, and you've got the same 200 or 1,000 or 2,000 games that you've got in your Steam library ready to go. They're ready to game on a totally different machine. Like you might have the Steam controller, so your games that you played, like say some of the games you play with your mouse and keyboard, they're not really made for mouse and keyboard. Say a driving game or a fighting game, you can replay on a Steam controller. That's giving you another level of gameplay.
And you know, one thing that the Steam box really will have an advantage over the consoles on, I mean, it's already a big advantage everywhere, but is, once again, stuff like Humble Bundle. So you'll be able to go buy 6 games every month for $6, $15, $20, whatever you want to pay. Plus, you know, Humble Bundle does a weekly sale every week, and that's another $6. So you can spend $50 a month on video games and add 20 games to your library every month for just $50. You can't buy one game for an Xbox One for $50.
No,
not gonna happen. And
no,
I think that the Steam machine, like I wrote a post the other day when the PlayStation 4 was having all the issues with its own like blue ring of death little issue. That I said that, you know, this right here shows that consoles are almost irrelevant now, because one little issue like this is backing up people that just spent $400 on a console. They're not going to get a replacement for a month or 2 months.
Yep.
Where if it was a PC or a Steam box that you can take apart, pull the discrete GPU out of, throw another $150 GPU in, like the R9 270, throw it in for $120, $150, whatever it costs, and you're back up and running. Then you can RMA your old unit, and then you come back and you have an extra GPU.
Yep. Well, and the other benefit is that you could go down to your local IT retailer, and you could say, here's my Steam box, open it up. They could literally dissect it right there and then on the table. I used to work at an IT retailer. I did it for 10 years. I would do that. So I always imagine that with a Steam machine, I would just take it apart on my table right in front of the customer. Oh, yep, look, this video card, I'll just test this. Bam, it works. You know it's a video card. I'll take this hard drive out. That's supposed to be one of the big benefits of a console. And people just go, it just works. Well, when I buy a $400 console like that, a next generation console, like, I find it funny that even going sidetracking for just 30 seconds, that they call it a next generation console. To me, PC has always been that generation ahead, or multiple generations ahead. It's like consoles hold everything back. Like, now that the new consoles are here, it's the next generation. But the next generation games are running at 720p. So to me, that's not true next generation. Next generation, I expect no problems. I expect them to just turn on and work. Day one, you need to install patches so you can play games. When I have a PC, I don't need to install a patch. It's 10 years ago I never needed to do that. It's only with the consoles that you've needed to do that. Where Steam, I think you're not going to need to do that as much, because the whole operating system is built for it. And the one big benefit that's going to be included with Steam Machine is that you can run Windows on it. That's going to be a huge thing. You can run Windows on it. You can triple boot with SteamOS. You can triple boot with Windows and triple boot with Linux. You can't do that on any console, and it's hard to do that on a PC. Where I think Valve are going to make it very easy for you to do it, because they know that even if you install Windows, SteamOS is going to feel so much better on the Steam machine and Steam boxes that you're probably not going to use Windows. But in saying that, people said, if I buy a Steam machine, I can't play Battlefield 4 because it's on Origin. But that's easy if you can install Windows. You can install a basic version of Windows. You can install Origin and that, and you've got the same machine. So you want to go to a LAN, you can just take your tiny little $500 Steam machine, take it over a friend's house, plug it into their mouse, keyboard, and monitor, and bam, you're up and running.
I agree. It's going to change everything. Then Gabe Newell knows this.
Oh, he does, and I think that's where you're seeing, like what your intern you've been reporting, and that you backed Cast AR, and that was pretty much Valve technology, or from someone who worked at Valve and left and then created a company and raised millions of dollars and now has an augmented reality Kickstarter that's just kicking ass right now. You've got Oculus Rift. You've got so much. You've got Virtuix Omni. All these things are going to work on Steam Machine. All these things are going to work on this $499 console. You don't have that on the Xbox One. That to me isn't next generation. You don't have that on the PS4. To me, that's not next generation. The controllers are still a controller. Like, at least Valve, I really didn't even think Valve would do this much work with the Steam controller. At the end of the day, the couple of weeks, I didn't think that they would have done that much work. where, again, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it's just a controller with thumbsticks. You know, we had those 10 years ago. You haven't provided me with anything exciting. I haven't bought a PlayStation 4. I don't even know. Sorry, I lie. Late last night, one of my friends, Tristan, bought a PlayStation 4. He's the only one that I know. Out of everyone that I know, one person with a PS4. It's just not exciting anymore.
And with that, let's say goodbye.
That's a wrap. So we just wanted to quickly come to you guys with a Thanksgiving gaming podcast. We hope you liked it, and the next one that's going to be coming up should be right on the back of this within a couple of hours of you guys checking this. We're going to have one that just takes a couple of the topics from the week. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, have a good time.